Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia, and today is Sunday, the 10th of September 2017. I'm so glad you're joining me today to talk about some knitting and yarn and general fibery goodness. I believe today is the 100th episode of this podcast, which is just incredible. I really can't believe it's been 100 episodes. I think I started this in August about 2 years ago, so I did miss my podiversary. But yeah, it's crazy to think how much time has passed, and those of you who've been watching for a very long time, how much of my life and my knitting story and stuff you've been seeing over the years. So that's really incredible. So just thank you for watching if you've been watching before, and of course if you're tuning in for the first time, I really do hope that you'll like it and you'll come back next week and maybe you'll become a subscriber. So I'm sorry if I sound a little bit sniffly. I had a bit of a cold and then it was gone and then it's back, and there's just nothing I can do about it, so we'll just get on with the knitting. But first of all, coffee. I have my coffee today in this super cute sheepy mug that my family brought for me from their trip to Ireland, and it's all these different sheep and they're so cute. So I have a huge cup of coffee today. We actually just got back. We did a little spontaneous weekend trip to Allgäu, which is where we go quite a lot. It's an area about 1.5 hours from here, and we're so lucky that Kai's parents have a tiny apartment there, so we can just go down there and hang out whenever we want to. But it's been raining for 48 hours, and it was really, really freezing this morning, so we had breakfast in the, not in the rain, but walked through the rain to get some breakfast, and then decided, well, if it's rainy and dark, we might as well hole up at home rather than spend the time there, because there's no point in really doing anything or hiking, or you couldn't even see the Alps, so oh well. So that's why I am managing to record today, which makes me really happy, because I was quite worried about not finding the time again. So I'll talk more about life stuff at the end, but first of all, let's talk about works in progress, and then acquisitions, and then we'll get to the life stuff. I'm sorry I feel so out of it today, but I'm just going to try to push through it and have this be a somewhat normal podcast. I don't have any finished objects this week, mostly because I could have finished a pair of socks, but I left my first sock at home. So when we were on our trip, I didn't know when to start the toe. So that's why, but that'll mean we'll just jump in straight into the works in progress. So since we're already talking about my almost finished pair of socks, why don't I just show them to you? So, which project bag? I think it's in this one. Yes. So you might remember I was knitting on a pair of hedgehog fibers socks in the Juniper colorway. This is their 9010 sock base, which I talked about before, how I really like it, contrary to lots of people. So I have finished the first sock, and this is what it looks like. So as you can see, I did a relatively long leg. I think I did 20 rows of ribbing and then 80 rows of stockinette, which is what I like for my socks, because I like them to be quite tall. And then a garter stitch fishnets kiss heel, and my usual wedge toe. So my first sock is done, and I started the second one, and I think it's about ready for the toe. Like I said, I was away, so I couldn't really measure it, but the toe should be very close, so I'm planning to finish these tonight. So let me just give you a close-up of this one, because it's easier to show you. I once again changed my setup slightly, so I'm still getting used to that. But aren't these colors just so beautiful? I think basically all of Hedgehog Fiber's colorways are just so beautiful, which is why I'm very, very excited about the first club shipment to arrive. But yeah, I mentioned last week how I do kind of want to have a hedgehog sock drawer, so I'm working on that. This is my second pair of Hedgehog Fiber socks, and I'm planning to knit quite a few more, because, like again, I mentioned last week, I really like this base, and it's turned out to be a very good base over the months that I've been wearing my first pair. So yes, these are my Juniper Hedgehog Fiber socks. Almost finished. These should definitely be finished by the next time I podcast, and hopefully they should be finished by tonight. So, let's just stay on the topic of socks since we're talking about them anyways. Maybe very quickly I should mention what I'm wearing. So I'm wearing my Find Your Fate shawl by Andrea Mowry. I tend to wear this on our holidays. It's really weird. I loved knitting the shawl. Again, lots of people didn't. I really loved the process of knitting it, but I don't really love wearing it because it is just too heavy and too big, and I don't know how to style it. So I don't wear it that much in everyday life. But then when we go away, it's just really nice to have sort of like a big, chunky, huge shawl to wrap up in. So yeah, I just thought today, because it's super, super cold. We had like 7 degrees this morning, which is freezing for September in Germany. I figured it's the right time to be wearing it. And I'm also wearing my Harvest cardigan, which I knit out of Malabrigo Rios. I don't remember the colorway name, but it's on my project page in case you're interested. So now, back to the socks. I have 2 more pairs of socks on the needles. This one is a new cast on that I randomly just decided I had to do. And I'm knitting these socks 2 at a time, toe up. And these are going to be gift socks. So you might remember I had this huge thing about knitting with commercial sock yarn for quite a while, and then I kind of stopped. I don't really know why. I just kind of fell out of love with the yarn bases of Regia and Opal and all that. And then I decided to try it again, and I'm really enjoying it. So this is Regia. I will show you the colorway in a second. But you can see it's just a super beautiful self-patterning yarn. So I cast on 24 stitches, increased to 60 stitches, because like I said, these will be a gift, most likely for my grandma. And I'm knitting them 2 at a time. I did put in fish lips kiss heels. And for these ones, I didn't put in my usual garter stitch heel, just because I know that I like to wear garter stitch heels. I know that my boyfriend doesn't mind them. I think my sisters would be fine, but for people who I don't really know the preferences, for example, of my grandma or Kai's mom. They might also go to Kai's mom. I'm not quite sure. It depends on what size they turn out in. So when I'm not sure about people's preferences when it comes to socks, I do prefer to knit a normal stockinette toe heel. I'm all over the place today. I'm sorry, you guys. So anyways, I put the heel in, and now I'm just knitting up the leg. You can see I purposely did not match them. I just wound the ball into 2 50-gram cakes and started. And I really like how one has a red toe and one has a white toe. I think that's quite fun. So yeah, this has been really fun and kind of restarted my love of commercial sock yarn. And let me show you the yarn tag. The yarn is by Regia. It's in their Norway color line. I have another ball of this line in a blue colorway. And the colorway is number 2915. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying these, and they have been going very, very fast. Now my last pair of socks that I'm working on is also a pair of gift socks, but these are for Kai, and I showed them to you last week. So these are the socks that Kai lovingly calls his Swampy Socks, based on a character called Swampy Thing. And I lost the tag already last week, so I'm very sorry about that. But this yarn is by Nalibes, who is on Etsy, and I will link her in the show notes, which you can find in our Ravelry group on Ravelry called the Happy Knitting Podcast group. So this is the yarn. It's in her 7525 wool and nylon blend. And the colorway is Wannabe Space. She's a German indie dyer. And I have finished the first sock. So because these are for Kai, these are very huge. I did 68 stitches. In fact, I always do 64 stitches on the ribbing for Kai's socks, and then I go up to 68 because he tends to kind of have his socks fall down at the top. So that just cinches them in a little bit more. So then besides that, just a vanilla 68 stitch sock with a garter stitch fish lips kiss heel. And they look so huge and out of form. I didn't even put them on a sock blocker because they would be too big for the sock blocker anyways. But he tried them on because I thought they might be too big, but they actually fit really, really great. So I'm very happy with these. And this is a very soft sock yarn, but it still feels very strong. So I think these can go through the washing machine a million times, no problem. Not that I hand wash any other socks, but with Kai I try to be a bit more careful because, as I mentioned before, he is quite hard on his socks. But yeah, I really like how this colorway is coming out. There are so many colorways in this yarn, or colors in this yarn. I think it's really beautiful. So I started the second sock, but I only started it last night, so I've done the ribbing and started the stockinette part, and now I just need to find the time to knit miles and miles of stockinette. You know, I love my vanilla socks, but somehow when they're in big sizes, it kind of... I don't even think it really slows me down. It just slows me down mentally, and I don't really want to work on them. But I'll get them done, and I've already got another couple of pairs for Kai planned, so better get knitting on these. And as usual, as with all of my socks that I've mentioned before, I'm knitting them on 2.25mm needles. That's a US size 1. Alright, so that's it for my socks. I also have a shawl and the needles, but I've barely worked on that. I've worked on it a little bit, but not enough to show you guys. So I'm not going to show that today, but what I will show is my faded pavement sweater, which I love. So I'm knitting the Pavement Sweater by Vera Välimäki, and I just decided to go with the faded concept, so I just used 3 different colors of yarn and am fading them as I go. And very excitingly, I'm close to finishing this. Let's see. So this is... I can't even fit it into the frame. There we go. So this is a pavement sweater. As you can see, I started with the orange, then went into the red, and I have now faded in the last color. So usually I would have already started the bind off, but I wanted to get a little bit more of this color in the garment because I want the color distribution to be somewhat equal. So I think this is, because this hasn't even been blocked yet, I think it's going to grow quite a bit when blocking. So I'm imagining this is going to be a bit of a longer sweater, which I really like. I like the idea of that. The thing is that the pavement sweater has sort of like a dipped hem in garter stitch, but I'm kind of considering just knitting a ribbed hem and not doing the whole short row thing. Mostly because I just don't want to turn my brain on, and also because it's already going to be a bit of a longer sweater. I think it might be very cozy to have just a very nice tight ribbing at the bottom. So I need to try this on, which I couldn't do on the holiday because I didn't have longer needles or long enough needles to try. But I'll try this on and then most likely do the ribbing and bind this off very soon. So once I bind it off, I only have to do a little bit of the sleeves because I've done most of the sleeves already. As you can see, I just need to fade in the last color. So I'm hoping for this to be done by the next time I podcast. I'm very excited to be finishing this, especially now that the weather is really cooling down. I'm really happy with how it's turned out so far, and I really like the pattern. I think I might knit it again because it's just one of the best fitting patterns I've knit in a while, gauging from when I've tried this on. So I really just like how the top is shaped. So I might kind of use this as a staple sweater pattern to knit lots of different sweaters on, because you could easily just modify this. You could put patterns on this, you could do cables, you can do faded sweaters. It's just a very good sort of basic sweater pattern. I'm knitting this on a 3.5mm needle, which is a US size 4, and it's quite smaller than what your pattern recommends, but I did kind of get gauged, so I just went with that. And the yarn is Debbie Bliss Botany Lace. So yeah, I'm really excited about this, and hopefully I'll have it done soon. I can't wait to block it and see how it blocks out and how it will look once it's all done. I'm really, really excited about this. So that's my last work in progress. But I did decide to also show you my Cozy Memories blanket again. This is my second coziest memory blanket based on the pattern by Kemper Ray, except I'm doing more stitches. I'm doing 56 stitches, and I'm doing it on a US size 0 or 2mm needle. So I have squared it off. I think I did 3 squares. Oh yeah, last time I showed it to you, sorry about the ends, they just need to be trimmed. I was on this square, which is a mini from Das Mondschaf in the Einhorn Poops colorway. And it looks as though I used a different yarn up here, but it just kind of, I hit a very colorful spot in the yarn, so I think that's really fun. Next, I added in this yarn, which is Bärenwolle in the Vogelhochzeit colorway, which I recently used to finish a pair of socks. This one was a mini that I was gifted from a lovely friend, and this was also from the same person. I knit my pair of mustache yarn socks in the Woodstock colorway. So I decided to put that into the blanket, and that was a 20 strap colorway, so I think I'm going to be putting more squares of that same colorway in different places of the blanket because it won't look like the same mini. So yeah, I'm super happy with this blanket. I pick it up, not enough, I should really work on it some more, but whenever I do, I really like it. I really like the look of it. And Kai is always using my first one that I knit, so I'm thinking if I ever finish this, it'll be really handy to have two. I've kind of neglected my crochet blanket, but I just don't really want to force it. I think one day I'll be wanting to work on it again, or maybe I'll forget, I'm not quite sure yet. It's not like I have that much done, but we'll just see how it goes. Right now I'm really enjoying this. I really enjoy the feel of it, so that's what I'm going to do. So that's my Coziest Memories blanket, which of course, again, you can find on my Ravelry page. And as you can see, it's not that big yet, but I'm not working on it enough, as I said. So, oh well. So, I'm back. So let's talk about some acquisitions that have piled up in the last 10 days or so. So first of all, I got my shipment of the Yarn Club from Nicole C. Mendes. So if you're in the club and you haven't received yours yet, please do look away. It's been here for about a week, so I'm assuming most have already received theirs, but if you haven't and you don't want to see it, please look away now. So this month's club yarn was called Summer in the City, and this is it. It's a very fun colorway. I think personally it's a very Nicole colorway. Like, I think this is very much her style, and in terms of the colors, it's very happy, very colorful, and I'm not quite sure how many stripes this one has, but it's on her 80/20 soft sock merino and nylon blend as usual. And with all these self-strapping colorways that I'm starting to acquire from her, it's really hard to tell how they'll look from the skein, I think. So I'm very curious to knit it up. This was the first shipment of her most recent 3-month club, but I was already part of the club the last 3 months. So I'm starting to have a bit of a collection of self-strapping yarn from Nicole, which I'm really, really happy about. So this is her logo. She can be found on Etsy. She's in Germany, but I'm sure she sells worldwide. So yeah, like I said, very excited about this. Not sure how fast I'm going to be knitting up all these self-strapping colorways, but I really am enjoying just having them in my stash, and sooner or later these will all be knit into socks. The second thing that showed up was a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine that I really didn't need but really just wanted to have. And I think I've mentioned before that I have a bit of an obsession with this dyer called Laughing Yaffle, who is Ali from the UK. And I recently found out that she watches this podcast, so hi, I had no idea. I've ordered from her quite a few times, I think. She does really beautiful self-strapping yarns, so I used her self-strapping yarn for my Valentine's Day cast on. And so whenever she has a shop update, which isn't very often, I just can't hold back. So I picked up one skein of yarn. I was relatively good because I could have picked up so much more. And this is on a base that I haven't tried before. This is on her high twist sock yarn. It's 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 365 meters, and it's in the Kite Tails colorway. So this is her logo, Laughing Yaffle from the UK. And I mean, these minty tones combined with pink and yellow specks, it just called my name and it wanted to live in my stash. I think it's really pretty, and I'm really liking these high twist merino nylon yarns lately. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. Can't wait to knit it up, but I have no current plans for this yet. I do want to knit more monkey socks, and I'm thinking this might be a contender for that, but I have so many plans at the moment for knitting, and I don't really get around to knitting that much, so we'll just see. But I'm very happy to add to my collection of Laughing Yaffle yarns, although I think I'm always knitting the yarns that I get from her up pretty quickly. So I'm not sure if I even have some in my stash, but now I do. So very excited about this, very much my colors. Even just looking at it now on the screen makes me very happy. That was going to be it, but then, like I said before, we went on a little weekend getaway over the weekend just because we've both been having very intense weeks and I've had some pretty big successes at work, so it just felt like we were ready to celebrate a little bit. So, and this is mixing acquisitions with life in general. I'm just going to go with it now. So we drove down to Allgäu on Friday night after work, and we already knew that the weather was going to be terrible, so we were expecting that. So on Saturday morning we decided to go to Kempten, which in itself is a very lovely place to hang out, do some shopping, have some good food, and there's a yarn store. And I kind of mentally prepared myself to maybe do some damage, and almost walked out with no yarn at all. But then I kind of picked up a ball of Regia, and the owner, or I believe he was the owner, there was this really nice guy. He came up to me and told me all about their new Christmas line. And I was like, ooh, that sounds very dangerous to me. So Regia came out with a new Christmas yarn line, and they called it Season Color, which I guess makes sense. So I'll just show you the ball band of one of them. So it's called Regia Season Color. It's their general normal 4-ply yarn. And he had samples, so like paper cut samples of all the socks and how they were going to knit up. And they had really fun names like Christmas tree, Christmas cookies, or Plätzchen as we call them, and gingerbread, and you know me, I'm a sucker for these things. And actually Kai was really excited about them too. So first of all, we went to and we got one skein each. He wanted this one, which is the Tannenbaum colorway, or Christmas tree. It's color number 9407. And you can see how it's going to knit up. Very Christmassy. I'm probably going to knit this up very soon for Amy's festive sock along. Amy of the Stranded podcast is hosting it. And then Kai kind of urged me to get one as well. So I got this one. And this is called Plätzchen, which is translated roughly into Christmas cookies. This is 9411. And this is not very Christmassy colorways, but just the sample they had looked like a very, very fun self-patterning yarn. So these were the two that we originally got, because Kai said I had to have some Christmas socks too. And then I sent a picture of the collection to my sisters and asked if they wanted to have any. And one of my sisters said she wanted either this one or that one, so I decided to get this one for her instead. So these are going to be for Pauline. And then, of course, I had to go back and buy another one for myself. So I got this one, which is also very Christmassy, and I really liked it before. This is in the Adventskranz colorway. And I'm not sure if there's even an English translation for that, because I have no idea if you have that in other countries. But it's colorway number 9408. And this, again, is a very fun sort of self-patterning colorway. And I just really like the colorways in here. Like, the red is for the red candles, I assume, and the green is for the like the needles of the words are failing me. I'm just going to give up. Anyways, it's a very Christmassy colorway, and I just couldn't pass it up, especially with my newfound love of self-patterning Regia yarns. So I got these 3, and I posted about it on Instagram, and I got so many questions as to where to get them, especially in the US and the UK. And honestly, I'm really sorry, but I got them in a local yarn store, so I have no idea. I would just suggest, instead of asking me, just Google Regia Season Color, and depending on where you are, Google will pick up on that, and hopefully you'll find a place. I know that you can order them in Germany, but I don't really know too much about it, and I'm not a yarn seller, I'm just a podcaster, so I'm very, very happy to recommend yarns, but I really just hope that you guys can find them somewhere on the internet. I think this came out very, very recently. Like in the yarn store, these were still packed in plastic bags. So it might just take a while to reach stores. I have no idea. I am not representing Riga or anything like that. So I'm sorry about that, but I'm sure you can find them somewhere. And if you can't, imagine me watching American podcasts. Like 90% of the stuff I see on podcasts I can't get, which can be quite sad. And I think a lot of European knitters will know how I feel about that. So yeah. Anyways, very excited about these. And like I said, of course I need to cast on Kai's first because he insisted on that. And then I need to cast on my sister's. And then the plan is to cast on mine last. So we'll see if I manage to knit all of these up before Christmas. But we'll see, we'll see. If not, it doesn't matter. I have another pair of Christmassy yarn that I do want to knit up for myself. A Anna and Carlos yarn, which is red and green, so that just seems like it wants to be a Christmas yarn as well. But then also Halloween is coming up, and I have one Halloween yarn already in my stash that has to be knit up, and I may have ordered another one. So many knitting plans, as I mentioned. We'll just see what actually gets done. And of course I want to do some gift knitting for other people besides Kai and my sister as well. So I could just be knitting socks all day long, and I think I'd never catch up anyways. Talking about Halloween yarns, this is a bit of a weird transition, but I just remembered because I ordered a skein of Halloween yarn from Giddy Yarns, who is Helen, I believe, in the UK. And she has given us a coupon code for the podcast. So for all coupon codes, you can always find them in the Ravelry group in the thread that's labeled coupon codes. But since I'm talking about her anyways, and I usually forget these things, I think with the code HAPPYKNITTING10, you can get 10% off in her store. And she has started dyeing relatively recently, I believe. So I'll of course show the yarn when I get it, and maybe some of you might be interested in that as well, especially because, like I said, and now I'm closing the circle, sometimes my mind goes crazy ways. She has Halloween yarns. So yeah. So I have some Christmas socks to knit, I have some Halloween socks to knit, I want to knit all the hedgehog fiber socks, and essentially all of my other stash as well. So we'll see how it goes, but very happy with these. So that's it for the yarny content of this show today. I feel like once again it's been all over the place, and I'm just going to accept it because, oh well. So I'm just going to talk about life in general. If you're not interested in that, that is 100% fine. In that case, I will just see you next week. And if you do want to stick around, you're of course welcome to do so. So, where should I start? I don't remember when I last podcasted, so that makes it difficult, but yeah, we'll just go with the flow. So my work has been going very well recently, which makes me very happy. We also have, I have a new colleague now, which is really, really fun and is making stuff a lot easier. So I've just noticed this week, like I came home from work and I was just much happier and much more relaxed than I usually am. So that was very nice to notice and just kind of realize how much stress I probably usually put on myself and don't even notice. So yeah, I'm actually really happy with how that's developing. There's a couple of further positive things going to happen at work. So yeah, like I said, very, very happy how that is going. It doesn't mean that it is not stressful, but we're getting there, and having a nice team and stuff definitely helps. Like I said, like 10 times now, we were away for the weekend. We knew that the weather forecast was very, very terrible, but we decided to go anyways, and we had a lot of fun. We arrived Friday night, and we have this one place where we always go to have schnitzel, and it was delicious. And it was just so relaxing. Once again, I was just less preoccupied with work stuff than I usually am. So I took a long bath at night, and I actually finished a book on my first night away, which is something that never happens. And it was just so good. We've been watching a lot of Gilmore Girls because you know how much I love it. In fact, I'm watching it for the third time now. And I was kind of worried after watching it 2 times that it would get boring, but I'm still loving it the third time around, so that makes me believe that I will probably watch it a 4th and 5th and 6th time and so on too. So I'm very, very happy about that. And we also started watching Narcos. I can't pronounce that word, sorry. We started watching that show about Pablo Escobar, and it came recommended by so many people, and so far we've been really enjoying it. So maybe that's something you guys might be interested in. So yeah, we hung out a lot thanks to the weather. Saturday was raining all day long as well, so we did a little shopping trip in the morning, had some nice lunch, and then we just really spent time in the apartment. Kai was painting, which is something he barely ever finds time for. I was knitting and watching podcasts, and it was really, really nice. We had some gin tonics at night, and yeah. So this morning we got up and it was still raining, and we went out for breakfast in Füssen. But it was just so freezing. We had like 7 degrees Celsius, and I had packed, like, I'm wearing my hand-knit sweater and my Find Your Fade and long sleeve tops underneath, but it was just too cold for me. And you couldn't see the Alps, so there was no sort of hiking or anything. Or who wants to go hiking when it's just streaming wet? And since it's a Sunday, everything was closed, so we decided to just drive home early and have some time at home, especially because Kai is going to be traveling quite a lot for business this week and next week. And yeah, so that meant I was able to get a podcast in as well, which I'm very happy about. We have 2 more full weeks and then 2 more days of work to go, and then we're going to France, and I am beyond excited about that. I'm looking forward to just eating and having warmer weather. I love fall. I'm really excited that fall is here, but it's nice to know that we will probably have some warm weather again before it gets really cold and wintry and so on. What else? One thing that I'm continually struggling with is ever since I started full-time work, which was in the beginning of the year, so quite a while ago now, I've been struggling with sort of battling my inner perfection with life, because now, of course, I just have so much less time than I used to, and with so many things that I like to do, I'm just noticing how much harder it gets when you don't have the time to do it properly. For example, this podcast, I'm continually just disappointed because I want it to be better quality. I just have these high standards that I set for myself, and at some point they just become very hard to meet. And I have been trying to be better about just letting things go and going with the flow and not always having everything be perfect. And I think I'm getting better at it, but I'm still kind of struggling with it. So I guess that's always going to be something that's going to be difficult as long as we do work full-time, both of us. It's also much harder to keep an apartment running and have proper cooked food on the table and so on when both of us are working a lot. But I mean, so many people do that, so it's not like I'm complaining. I'm actually really happy with it. Like I said, I'm just finding it much harder to get my knitting in, my podcasting, social responsibilities, and like a lot of things that are fun still take up a lot of time. So whereas I used to be able to do a lot of things, now it's more of a having to choose between things. So for example, this weekend was the first weekend in, I think since June or July, that we had nothing at all planned. And it was so nice to have that. We decided in the beginning of the week that we were not going to talk to any, or like not going to make any plans with friends. We're just going to hang out, the 2 of us, and then pretty spontaneously decided to drive down to Allgäu. And it's been very, very nice. And we've got a couple of busy weeks coming up, but I'm trying to get better at planning and sort of saying, I want a completely free weekend between weekends where we do something or visit people. So yeah, I guess we're just still adapting to changes, and that's absolutely normal. But that's just something I've been thinking about, and if you guys have any sort of ideas or book tips or tricks in terms of time management and setting priorities and so on, please feel free to just share them with me. I'm not desperate for help or anything, but I'm just open to ideas. So let me know how you guys feel and if you have any recommendations. So that was a very deep ending to the podcast, wasn't it? So I think I've talked about all that I've been wanting to talk about. I'm super excited to just now cuddle up on the couch and knit and finish these socks from Hedgehog Fibers that I talked about. Possibly do some new cast-ons, but I should really just finish some stuff first. Maybe play with my stash a little bit. You know, I like to reorganize my stash, as I assume lots of people do. So there should be 2 more podcasts coming out before we go away. If not 2, definitely 1. So I will try to see you next weekend or sometime between the next 7 to 10 days. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting my podcast. And of course, I love to hear from you via comments, via Instagram, via Ravelry. Join the group. And until I talk to you again, have a great week. Happy knitting. Bye.